Captain David Wilson stood at the bridge of the U.S. Nemesis, looking out at the vast emptiness of space. The massive battleship, nearly 2 miles long, was humanity's greatest achievement. Its dark hull seemed to swallow the light from nearby stars, making it look like a hole in space itself. "Captain, we're getting multiple distress signals," said Lieutenant Emily Foster, her fingers moving quickly across her control panel. "3 human colonies are under attack." Wilson's jaw tightened. They had known this day would come. The Zanari, an alien species that looked like tall, blue-skinned humanoids, had been attacking worlds for the past 2 years. Now they had finally reached human space. "Show me the closest colony," Wilson ordered. A hologram appeared in the center of the bridge, showing New Haven, one of humanity's largest colonies. 15 Zanari ships, each shaped like giant arrowheads, were firing at the colony's shields. "Time to arrival?" Wilson asked. 2 hours at maximum speed, sir," replied Navigation Officer Susan Martinez. Her hands were already setting the course. Wilson nodded. "Take us in. And wake up the rest of the crew." The U.S. Nemesis was different from any ship humanity had built before. It used new technology that scientists had discovered just 5 years ago. Its shields were made from controlled dark matter, its weapons used quantum energy, and its engines could bend space itself. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Robert Hayes was checking the ship's power systems. The quantum core hummed with energy, glowing with a soft blue light. "All systems are green, Captain," he reported through the intercom. The old girl's ready for her first real fight. As the Nemesis traveled through space, Wilson received reports from the colonies. The Zanari had already destroyed 3 smaller outposts, killing hundreds. Their message was always the same: surrender or die. "Sir," called out Intelligence Officer Mark Peterson, "I'm picking up Zanari communications." "There?" He paused, looking confused. "They're laughing about how easy this is. They're calling us primitive." Wilson allowed himself a small smile. The Zanari didn't know what was coming. The U.S. Nemesis had been kept secret for exactly this reason. No alien species knew what humanity was truly capable of. "Lieutenant Foster, prepare the main weapon," Wilson ordered. "Let's show them how primitive we are." The bridge crew worked in focused silence as the ship rushed toward New Haven. They had trained for months for this moment, but training was different from real combat. Everyone knew that humanity's future might depend on what happened in the next few hours. Finally, Martinez announced, "Approaching New Haven, sir. Zanari ships will spot us in 30 seconds." "Good," Wilson said. He stood up from his chair. "Communications, open a channel to all Zanari ships." The screen in front of them showed the face of a Zanari commander. The alien had blue skin, 4 eyes, and looked surprised to see humans contacting them. "This is Captain David Wilson of the U.S. Nemesis," Wilson spoke clearly and calmly. "You are attacking human colonies. Leave now, or we will be forced to defend ourselves." The Zanari commander made a sound that might have been laughter. "1 ship. You send 1 ship against 15. Your species is even more foolish than we thought." "This isn't just any ship," Wilson replied. "This is humanity's response to threats like you. This is your only warning." The Zanari commander's response was to cut the communication. On the screen, they could see 3 Zanari ships breaking off from attacking the colony and turning toward the Nemesis. "They're charging weapons," Foster reported. Wilson sat back in his chair. "Let them fire first. Let's show them exactly what they're dealing with." The Zanari ships fired their energy weapons, bright beams of destructive force heading straight for the Nemesis. But when they hit the dark matter shields, something happened that the Zanari had never seen before. The beams simply disappeared, absorbed completely. "Shields at 100%, Foster announced. No damage. On the screen, they could see the Zanari ships suddenly stop firing. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then Peterson spoke up. "Sir, they're sending confused messages to each other." They don't understand what just happened. Now, Wilson said quietly, it's our turn. The U.S. Nemesis' first battle was about to begin, and the Zenari were about to learn that humanity was far from primitive. They were about to learn why one look at humanity's battleship would send aliens running. Lieutenant Emily Foster's hands moved smoothly across her weapons console as she tracked the Zenari ships. The aliens had stopped their first attack, but she knew they weren't done yet. 12 more ships were leaving the colony's orbit, joining the first 3 that had attacked the Nemesis. All 15 ships are moving to surround us, she reported to Captain Wilson. Her screen showed the enemy vessels trying to form a sphere around the Nemesis. Wilson watched the enemy movements carefully. They think they can trap us, he said. Let's show them why that's a mistake. A message came through from the Zenari commander. This time, all 4 of his eyes were narrow with anger. Your shields are impressive, humans, but how long can they last against all of us? Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick. There's an uninhabited moon about 50,000 miles from here, Foster said quietly to Wilson. Perfect for a demonstration. Wilson nodded. He understood what she meant. Zenari commander, he spoke clearly. Watch carefully. What you're about to see is just one of our smaller weapons. He nodded to Foster. Target that moon. Show them a fraction of our power. Foster's fingers danced across her console, entering the targeting commands. The Nemesis's main quantum cannon began to charge. Blue energy crawled along the ship's hull like lightning. Quantum cannon at 10% power, Foster announced. Target locked. The Zenari ships held their positions. Their sensors must have detected the energy buildup, but they didn't know what it meant. They had never seen quantum weapons before. Fire, Wilson ordered. A beam of pure white energy shot from the Nemesis. It passed between 2 Zenari ships and struck the moon. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire moon began to glow. Cracks of white light spread across its surface. Suddenly, the moon didn't just explode. It disappeared, turned into energy, and scattered into space. Complete silence fell over the Nemesis's bridge. On their screens, they could see the Zenari ships backing away slowly. Picking up their communications, Peterson reported, his voice excited. They're panicking, sir. They've never seen anything like this. Some of their crews are demanding to retreat. The Zenari commander's face appeared on screen again. His blue skin had turned almost white. What kind of demons are you? We are not demons, Wilson replied calmly. We are humans. That was a warning shot at 10% power. The next one will be at full power, and it will be aimed at your ships. Martinez spoke up from her navigation station. 3 Zenari ships are powering up their engines. They look ready to run. The Zenari commander was speaking quickly now. You cannot be this powerful. You were primitive just a few years ago. This is impossible. We kept our true strength hidden. Wilson said, we watched as you attacked peaceful worlds. We prepared. We built the Nemesis. And now you have 2 choices. Leave human space forever, or face our full power. Foster's console lit up with warnings. Sir, 12 ships are charging weapons. The hard way, then, Wilson said. Lieutenant Foster, target their lead ship. Show them what 25% power looks like. The quantum cannon charged again. This time, the Zenari watched as one of their strongest battleships was hit. The ship didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, leaving nothing behind but a brief flash of light. The effect was immediate. The remaining Zenari ships scattered like startled birds. Their formation broke apart as each captain seemed to decide retreat was the better option. They're running, sir, Peterson called out. All ships are jumping to faster than light speed. They're sending messages to their fleet. They're warning others to stay away from human space. Wilson allowed himself to relax slightly in his chair. Send a message to New Haven Colony. Tell them they're safe. As the bridge crew celebrated their first victory, Foster looked at her captain. Sir, she said, they'll be back. And next time, they'll bring more ships. Wilson nodded. Yes, they will. But now, they know what they're facing. And fear. He smiled slightly. Fear can be a more powerful weapon than any quantum cannon. The U.S. Nemesis hung in space, its dark hull still crackling with energy. In just one brief battle, it had changed everything. The Zanari, who had never known defeat, had run away. And across alien communication channels, the story was already spreading. Beware the humans and their demon ship. One look at humanity's battleship had indeed sent aliens running. Chief Engineer Robert Hayes walked through the massive engine room of the U.S. Nemesis, checking readings on his tablet. The quantum core pulsed with blue light, filling the chamber with a soft glow. 3 days had passed since their first battle with the Zanari, and stories about the ship were spreading faster than light across space. "Sir," called one of his engineers, pointing to a screen. "Look at these energy readings. The core is performing even better than we designed it to." Hayes smiled. He had helped build this engine, spending 5 years of his life on the project. "She's not just a machine," he said, patting the metal wall. "She's got spirit." Up on the bridge, Intelligence Officer Mark Peterson was listening to alien communications. His eyes grew wider with each new message he picked up. "Captain," he called to Wilson, "you need to hear this. The aliens, they're calling us the Ghost Makers." Wilson walked over to Peterson's station. "Ghost Makers?" "Yes, sir, because our weapons make ships vanish without a trace." Peterson played some of the translated messages. Different alien voices spoke with fear about the human ship that could erase matter from existence. "There's more," Peterson continued. "The Zanari aren't just running. They're warning everyone. 3 other aggressive species have already pulled their ships back from human borders." Lieutenant Emily Foster joined them, listening to the alien chatter. "They think we have a whole fleet of ships like the Nemesis," she said, surprised. Wilson smiled. "Let them think that. Sometimes one legend is more powerful than 100 ships." In the ship's mess hall, Navigation Officer Susan Martinez sat with Hayes, sharing a meal. The engineer was explaining how the ship's systems work to her. "See, we don't just bend space," Hayes said, using his hands to show the concept. "We fold it. When we fire the quantum cannon, we're not destroying things. We're sending them somewhere else. Even we don't know where." Martinez shook her head in wonder. "No wonder they're scared. We built something even we don't fully understand." The ship's communication system crackled to life. "All senior officers to the bridge," Wilson's voice called out. When they gathered on the bridge, Peterson showed them the latest news. A hologram displayed a map of known space, with red dots showing alien fleet movements. "The Zanari are pulling back from all human colonies," Peterson explained. "But that's not all. Look at these messages from their home world." The translated messages showed panic among the Zanari leadership. They had lost their best battleship without a trace. Their weapons were useless against the Nemesis's shields. Some Zanari were calling for peace talks. Others wanted to build their own quantum weapons. "They can try," Hayes said with a laugh. "It took us years to figure out how to control quantum energy. Their scientists don't even understand the basic principles." "Sir," Foster spoke up, looking at her screens, "we're getting a message from Earth Command. They want us to do a patrol of all human colonies. Show the flag, as they say." Wilson nodded. "They want everyone to see the Nemesis, to know we can protect them." He turned to Martinez. "Plot a course. We'll visit every human world." As the Nemesis traveled from colony to colony, its legend grew. Alien ships would jump away as soon as they detected it. Some alien crews refused to fly anywhere near human space. At each colony, humans would gather at viewing stations to watch the Nemesis pass by. Its dark hull and massive size became a symbol of safety. Children made toys shaped like the ship. Stories spread about how it had made a moon vanish and turned Zanari ships into ghosts. "You know what's funny?" Peterson said to Wilson as they watched another group of alien ships flee from their path. We haven't had to fire a shot since that first battle. Just our presence is enough now. Wilson looked at the stars through the bridge window. That's the best kind of victory, he said. The kind where you don't have to fight. The Nemesis continued its patrol, a dark guardian in the night. In just a few days, it had changed the balance of power in known space. Humanity was no longer seen as a primitive species. Now they were the ghost makers, the people who had built a ship so powerful that one look sent aliens running. And somewhere in the depths of space, in the high command of various alien species, leaders looked at pictures of the U.S. Nemesis and felt something they had never expected to feel when thinking about humans. The peace lasted exactly 2 weeks. The Zanari had spent that time gathering every ship they could find. Now they were back, and they had brought their entire fleet. 150 ships, Lieutenant Emily Foster announced, her voice tense as she looked at her screen. All heading straight for Proxima Colony. Captain Wilson stood on the bridge of the U.S. Nemesis, watching the massive fleet approach. The Zanari ships filled the view screen like a swarm of angry wasps. They think they can overwhelm us with numbers, Wilson said calmly. Navigation Officer Martinez, take us right into the middle of their fleet. Martinez's hands flew over her controls. Yes, sir. But won't that put us in range of all their weapons? That's exactly what I want, Wilson replied. Let them see what happens when they throw everything they have at us. The Nemesis moved forward, its dark hull gleaming against the stars. The Zanari fleet split into 3 groups, trying to trap the human ship between them. They're charging weapons, Foster reported. All ships. They're going to hit us with everything at once. Wilson nodded. Raise shields to maximum. Let's show them why that's a bad idea. The space around the Nemesis lit up like a new sun as 150 ships fired at once. Energy beams, plasma bolts, and missiles streaked toward the human battleship from every direction. When the attacks hit the dark matter shields, something amazing happened. Instead of being absorbed like before, the shield seemed to catch the energy and spin it around the ship like a glowing tornado. Shield status? Wilson asked. 100%, Foster replied, smiling. The new upgrades are working. We're not just blocking their attacks, we're collecting the energy. Chief Engineer Hayes's voice came over the intercom. Captain, the Quantum Core is loving this. All that free energy. We could power the main cannon 10 times over. The Zanari must have realized something was wrong because their ships started to back away. But they had already made their mistake. Lieutenant Foster, Wilson ordered, show them what happens when they give us more power to work with. Foster's fingers danced across her console. The quantum cannon began to charge, but this time it glowed with both blue and red energy. Their power combined with the Zanari's stolen energy. Target their flagship, Wilson commanded. Full power. The beam that shot from the Nemesis was brighter than any star. When it hit the Zanari flagship, the massive ship didn't just vanish like the others had. It created a hole in space, a swirling vortex that started pulling in nearby ships. Sir, Peterson shouted from his station. The Zanari are panicking. They think we've opened a gate to hell. Martinez had to work hard to keep the Nemesis steady as the vortex pulled at everything around it. How long will that last? She asked nervously. About 30 seconds, Hayes replied over the intercom. Just long enough to make an impression. When the vortex finally closed, 20 Zanari ships had vanished with it. The rest of the fleet was in chaos. Ships were flying in every direction, trying to escape. Picking up transmissions, Peterson reported, trying not to laugh. They're saying we have the power of gods. Some of their captains are refusing to fight us. Wilson watched as the mighty Zanari fleet fell apart. Send them one message, he ordered. Tell them this was our full power. Tell them what happened today when they made us use everything we had. Foster sent the message. The response was immediate. The remaining Zanari ships started jumping away to faster-than-light speed, running as fast as their engines could carry them. In less than 10 minutes, the great battle was over. The Zanari fleet, the largest ever gathered in known space, had been defeated by a single human ship. Damage report? Wilson asked, even though he knew the answer. No damage, Foster replied. Shields never dropped below maximum. We're actually stronger now, thanks to all the energy they gave us. The bridge crew looked at each other, slowly realizing what they had just done. They had faced an entire alien fleet and won without taking the scratch. Send word to Earth, Wilson ordered. Tell them the Zanari won't be bothering us again. I don't think anyone will, after they hear about this. The U.S. Nemesis hung in space, its hull still glowing slightly from absorbed energy. The ship had just written itself into history, not just as humanity's defender, but as a legend that would make any alien think twice about attacking Earth or its colonies. Intelligence Officer Mark Peterson had never seen anything like it. His communication screens were filled with alien messages, all talking about the U.S. Nemesis. After the Battle of Proxima, it seemed like every species in known space had something to say about the human ship. Listen to this one, he said to Captain Wilson, playing a translated message. The Zanari soldiers are refusing to board their ships. They say anyone who fights the demon ship is already dead. Wilson sat in his command chair, reading through Peterson's reports. The Zanari fleet had lost 40 ships total, 20 to the quantum cannon and 20 more to the space vortex. But the real damage wasn't to their ships, it was to their minds. Here's another one, Peterson continued. The Zanari War Council is fighting among themselves. Half of them want to surrender to Earth. The other half want to run away and hide in unexplored space. Lieutenant Emily Foster joined them, bringing up images on the main screen. They showed Zanari ships being abandoned at space stations. Crews were leaving their posts, refusing to fly anywhere near human space. It's not just the Zanari, she said. Look at these readings from the border of human space. Every alien patrol ship has pulled back at least 100 light years. They're giving us a bigger safety zone than any species has ever had. Down in the engine room, Chief Engineer Hayes was explaining to a group of visitors from Earth how the ship had used the Zanari's own weapons against them. The visitors were military officials, come to see the ship that had changed the balance of power in space. The dark matter shields don't just block energy, Hayes explained, pointing to diagrams. They can absorb it, spin it around, and feed it into our weapons. The more they shot at us, the stronger we got. One of the officials shook her head in wonder. No wonder they're terrified. You didn't just beat them, you turned their own power against them. Navigation Officer Susan Martinez was mapping the changes in alien ship movements. Where there used to be hundreds of alien military vessels near human colonies, now there were none. The space around Earth and its colonies was completely empty of alien ships. They're not even using their regular trade routes if they come near our space, she told Wilson. They're going hundreds of light years out of their way just to avoid us. Peterson's console lit up with new messages. Captain, he called out, you need to see this. 3 other aggressive species, the Krath, the Volnar, and the Uxel. They're all sending messages to Earth. They want to sign peace treaties. They've never asked for peace before, Foster said. They've only ever demanded surrender from other species. Wilson nodded. Fear can change minds faster than any weapon. The Nemesis didn't just win a battle, it broke their confidence. They'd lost their belief that they're the strongest species in space. More reports came in throughout the day. Alien trading posts were full of stories about the Nemesis. Some said it could turn whole fleets into ghost ships. Others claimed it could create black holes at will. Each story was bigger than the last, but they all had one thing in common. They all said to stay away from human space. Sir, Peterson said late in the day, I just intercepted a message from a Zanari colony. Their children are crying whenever they see pictures of our ship. They're using the Nemesis as a story to scare misbehaving kids. Wilson couldn't help but smile at that. Parents across the galaxy will tell their children to be good or the human ship will come for them. The U.S. Nemesis continued its patrol of human space, but now it was a quiet job. No alien ship dared to come close. Just the sight of the massive dark hull on their sensors was enough to send them running. "You know what's funny?" Foster said to Wilson as they watched another alien ship make a panic jump to faster-than-light speed. "We're probably the most powerful ship in known space, but after today we might never have to fire our weapons again." Wilson looked out at the stars. The Nemesis had done more than protect human space. It had changed how every alien species saw humanity. They were no longer the newcomers to space travel, no longer the primitive species that had just learned to leave their planet. Now they were the species with the ghost ship, the demon ship, the ship that could turn energy into holes in space. They were the humans, and just one look at their battleship sent aliens running. The warning came at midnight, ship time. The Zanari admiral, driven mad by defeat and shame, had taken 30 ships on a suicide mission. Their target wasn't the Nemesis. It was Earth itself. "They've gone completely insane," Lieutenant Emily Foster said, looking at the sensor readings. "They've loaded their ships with explosive materials. They plan to crash into Earth's major cities." Captain Wilson's face was grim as he called the crew to battle stations. The Nemesis was the only ship close enough to stop them. They had less than an hour to prevent a disaster. "Navigation Officer Martinez," Wilson ordered, "plot and intercept course. Maximum speed." The massive engines of the Nemesis roared to life. Chief Engineer Hayes's voice came over the intercom. "I'm giving her everything she's got, Captain. We'll catch them before they reach Earth." As they raced through space, Intelligence Officer Peterson listened to the Zanari communications. "Sir," they're laughing. "The Admiral is telling his crews that if they can't rule space, they'll at least be remembered as the ones who hurt Earth." Wilson stood up from his chair. "Lieutenant Foster, prepare the quantum cascade device." A hush fell over the bridge. The quantum cascade device was the Nemesis' ultimate weapon. They had never used it before. It was too powerful, too dangerous. "Sir," Foster said quietly, "we've never tested it in real combat. The scientists said it could tear a hole in space-time." "Better a hole in space than a hole in Earth," Wilson replied. "Prepare the device." The Zanari ships came into view on their screens. They were flying in a tight formation, their engines pushed to their limits as they headed for Earth. "They're not even trying to hide," Martinez said. "They know we're coming, and they don't care." The Zanari Admiral's face appeared on their screen. His blue skin was dark with rage, his 4 eyes wild. "You can't stop all of us, demon ship. Some will get through. Earth will burn." Wilson didn't bother responding. "Foster, target the center of their formation. Hayes, divert all power to the cascade device." The Nemesis's hull began to glow with strange lights. Colors that shouldn't exist in normal space danced across its surface. In the engine room, Hayes watched as the quantum core pulsed with power. "Device charged to maximum," Foster reported. Her hands were steady on the controls, but her voice shook slightly. "Ready to fire." "Do it," Wilson ordered. Foster pressed the button. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then a small dot of pure darkness appeared in front of the Nemesis. It grew quickly, becoming a sphere of absolute black. The Zanari ships tried to turn away, but it was too late. The quantum cascade had begun. Space itself began to fold and twist around the sphere. Light bent in impossible ways. "What's happening to them?" Martinez asked, staring at her screens. The Zanari ships weren't being destroyed. Instead, they were stopping. Just stopping. Their engines still burned, but they weren't moving. Time around their ships was slowing down until they appeared frozen in space. "The cascade device doesn't destroy," Hayes explained over the intercom. "It traps things in a bubble where time moves so slowly, 1 second for them is 1,000 years for us." They watched as all 30 Zanari ships were caught in the time bubble. The Admiral's last transmission cut off mid-scream. Then the bubble began to shrink, becoming smaller and smaller until it was just a tiny black dot in space. "Target neutralized," Foster reported. "The bubble will keep shrinking until it vanishes completely. The Zanari fleet will be trapped in that slow time pocket forever." Wilson sat back in his chair, feeling the weight of what they had just done. They hadn't just stopped an attack. They had shown the galaxy the true extent of human power. They could control not just space, but time itself. "Send word to Earth," he ordered Peterson. "Tell them the threat is eliminated. And make sure our sensors record everything. I want every species in the galaxy to see what happens when they push humanity too far." The bridge crew watched as the last trace of the time bubble vanished. The Zanari admiral and his suicide fleet would drift in their slow time prison until the end of the universe, an eternal warning to any who would threaten Earth. The U.S. nemesis turned away from the site of its final battle. Its reputation was now complete. It wasn't just a powerful ship. It was a ship that could bend the laws of physics themselves. No alien species would dare challenge humanity again. 5 years had passed since the U.S. nemesis first appeared in space. Captain David Wilson stood at the observation deck, watching Earth's first diplomatic conference with 20 alien species. The nemesis floated above the space station where the meeting was taking place, its dark hull a reminder of humanity's power. "Quite a change from 5 years ago," Lieutenant Emily Foster said, joining him at the window. She had earned a promotion to second officer but still preferred her old title. "Remember when they all thought we were primitive?" Wilson nodded, smiling. The memory of those early days seemed distant now. 3 attempted invasions stopped just because we showed up. Not a single shot fired. On the deck below them, Intelligence Officer Mark Peterson was showing a group of alien diplomats around the ship. The visitors kept close together, their eyes wide as they looked at the ship that had become a legend. "The quantum core is behind that wall," Peterson explained, pointing. "And no, we can't show you how it works." The aliens nodded quickly. None of them wanted to seem too interested in the ship's weapons. In the 5 years since the Battle of Proxima, trying to copy human quantum technology had become a serious crime in most alien societies. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Hayes was training a new crew. The Nemesis was no longer Earth's only quantum ship, though it remained the most famous. 5 more ships of its class had been built, each one carrying the legacy of the original. "Remember," Hayes told his students, patting the quantum core's housing, "this ship didn't just win battles. It changed how the galaxy thinks about humanity." Navigation Officer Susan Martinez's voice came over the intercom. "Captain to the bridge. The diplomatic ceremony is about to begin." Wilson made his way to the bridge, passing dozens of crew members at their stations. The Nemesis had a new crew now, the 4th since its first mission. Serving on the ship had become the highest honor in Earth's fleet. On the main screen, they could see the diplomatic conference beginning. The Zanari representatives were there, a very different species now from the warriors who had once threatened Earth. They had become traders instead of raiders, their warships converted to cargo vessels. "Incoming message from the station," Peterson announced from his station. "They want us to do the honor display." Wilson nodded. This had become a tradition at diplomatic events. "Lieutenant Foster, power up the quantum core. Let's give them the light show they're waiting for." The Nemesis's hull began to glow with its characteristic blue energy. The quantum core powered up, creating a display of light and color that lit up space around the station. It was beautiful rather than threatening, but everyone watching knew what that power could do if needed. "Message from Earth Command," Peterson said. "The history museums want to know if we're ready to retire the Nemesis. Make her a permanent memorial." "Not yet," Wilson replied. Many of the newer ships were more advanced, but none had the Nemesis reputation. "She still has work to do." As if to prove his point, 3 alien ships appeared at the edge of the system. As soon as their sensors detected the Nemesis, they turned and jumped away. No explanation needed, no threats required. Just one look at humanity's battleship still sent aliens running. You know what the aliens call this era? Foster asked, reading from her screen. The Pax Humana, the human peace, because no one dares start a war while we're watching. Wilson looked at his crew, at the ship that had changed the galaxy, and at the peaceful diplomatic meeting below. The Nemesis had been built as a weapon, but its greatest victory had been preventing wars rather than fighting them. Send a message to Earth Command, he ordered. Tell them the Nemesis isn't ready for retirement. As long as her presence keeps the peace, this is where she belongs. The great ship hung in space, its dark hull and blue energy, a symbol that meant different things to different species. To humanity's allies, it meant protection. To potential enemies, it meant fear. To the crew who served on it, it meant pride. But to everyone in the galaxy, the U.S. Nemesis meant one simple thing. Humanity was not to be underestimated. They were no longer the newcomers to space. They were the species that had built a ship so powerful, so legendary, that one look sent aliens running. And as long as the Nemesis patrolled the stars, that peace would last.